Alright, so everybody knows about the Savannah Bananas. They're basically the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball, doing crazy flips, dancing on the field, all that type of stuff. But did you know that they actually have a rival? Not a lot of people know or talk about the Savannah Party Animals, as they kinda just live in the shadow of the Bananas. While they are slept on, believe me when I say they are just as wild, and today I'm giving them a shot in the big leagues. I have created the Party Animals in MLB The Show, and they're replacing the Tampa Bay Rays in the AL East. This video will not end until the Party Animals win a World Series, but here's the twist. I didn't exactly give them a very good roster, as they are going to be starting pretty much from scratch. This team consists mainly of C and D potential players who are mostly free agents. There are some very interesting names on this roster, such as On-Base Jace. How could I forget about him? He was a big part of the first franchise I ever did on this channel back in 2023. Unfortunately though, while our uniforms and the vibe of this team are extremely fun, we don't have any talent in the farm system, and this is going to be a long haul rebuild. With no farm system to develop, we're going to be fully focused on young talent for the first couple years. And on top of that, I have to spin from the wheel of chaos once a year. This will give us one unique rule to follow every single year of the rebuild, so I'm a little nervous. Let's see what the wheel lands on for season 1. Draft college players only. That is kinda tough. Roughly 80% of the players that I draft are usually 18, so I don't know how we're gonna do this. Looking at the lineup though, there's not too much to be excited about, as we have no players higher than 68 overall. Then in the rotation, I think it might actually be worse. Notably, we have 2 former Athletics at the top, along with Chris Flexen at number 4. We could find out just how bad we are, because we're facing the Rockies on opening day, and it doesn't get much worse than that. Early on though, Adrian Martinez is holding it down, but unfortunately, our offense has been just as bad as Colorado's. In the 4th inning, both teams have perfect games going, but that's not gonna last. Freeman sneaks one through the infield and gets all the way to third base before Hunter Goodman scores him. Now it's up to Savannah to answer, but Chase Dollander is putting them away. This could very well be the beginning of the end, depending on if Martinez can lock it down, which he does. Winning our first MLB game in team history would be a huge statement, and finally in the bottom of the 5th, we're gonna get on base. That is Dom Nunez with the first double in team history. With 7 speed, I'm a little surprised he got to second, but now it's up to Joey Gallo to score him. It's not gonna happen. That might have been our only chance to win this game, but simming forward, we do tie it up. I know it's only the Rockies, but I do have to give a huge shout out to Martinez for only giving up 1 run. He's actually giving us a chance to win this game, but right on cue, one of the best catchers in the league makes us pay. Goodman gaps his 2nd double of the game, but thankfully we do get out of it without giving up a run, and right on cue, that's a dinger from David Dahl. We have taken the lead thanks to a 30-year-old 65 overall right fielder. On these expansion level rosters, you never know which players are gonna break out, but that was a moonshot to center field. Very fittingly though, this is a bit of a revenge series for Dahl, who had his best seasons with the Rockies. Now the Party Animals are in very good position to win this game, but an insurance run would be really nice. After a double, we are in very prime position, and there is On-Base Jace scoring another run. It is 3-1 Party Animals in their first game. Now we gotta close them out though, and honestly I don't even know who our closer is. I guess it's Matt Cook. I know it's just the Rockies, but this would be a fun way to start out, as Cook gets 1 strikeout but walks Tovar. Now with Hunter Goodman at the plate, I'm a little bit concerned, as it's 2-1, and he already has 2 doubles against us, so we're not taking any chances. That will put the go-ahead run at the plate, so we have to find a way out of this and catch them fishing for strike 3. The Party Animals have officially won their first game in MLB. This is not projected to be a fun year for us, so I'm glad there's one positive to start out on. Adrian Martinez was an absolute beast on the mound, going 8 innings with 11 strikeouts and only giving up 1 run. He has definitely earned the chance to be the ace of the staff as we sim the next game and also win it 2-1. It turns out the Rockies are even sadder than I thought they would be, as that is Dalton Jeffries going 7 innings. We can start the season with a 3-game sweep, but cannot get it done, and then lose 2-1 to the Pirates. Now we're jumping into the draft with the number 14 overall pick, and remember, based on the rules, we're only allowed to draft college players. That of course means in this video that we will not be able to get any head. That is a massive tragedy, but maybe there's a couple college guys who can make it feel a little bit better. First baseman Orlando Novoa is right around our selection at number 17, and seems to be a really good contact impact hitter, although the power leaves a lot to be desired. We might come back to him later on, but to start things off, we're going to be looking at catcher Cristobal Sandoval. The Cuban player is definitely more of a project, and at 19 years old, we're going to assume that he's in college. Starting the season 3-5 is definitely not what I expected, but suddenly here come all of the losses. We've lost 10 games in a row. That was going to happen sooner rather than later, but on the bright side, at least Sandoval looks really good. We're still going to have to finish his profile, but so far I'm really liking what I'm seeing. Alongside him though, I also want another option in the first round in center fielder Eric Pena. He's also guaranteed to have a good ceiling, but the thing that really sets him apart for me is that power, which is out of this world. There's a very good chance that his potential ends up being somewhere in the 90s with power in the 70s. Sure enough, right after simulating a week, Eric Pena goes up to number 19, immediately becoming my favorite player on the board. After starting the season on a very promising note, the Party Animals are by far the worst team in the league, and ever since winning 3 out of our last 4 games, we have only won 4 more total. That is disappointing, but certainly not expected, and I will say that on the bright side, Joey Gallo is having a really nice season. At 31 years old with deep potential though, I don't think there's any chance for him to save his career, and aside from a few more players here and there, nobody else is really moving the needle. That's especially true in the rotation, where Dalton Jeffries is not putting up the worst numbers, but that's the only good thing we can say about the entire rotation. Despite only being allowed to draft college players, this first draft is gonna matter more than anything. So far, I feel like we found some decently draftable guys on offense, with my favorite of the bunch still being Eric Pena. However, because of where the rotation stands and the fact that we need 5 starters, I do want to prioritize pitching, although a lot of the players that I'm seeing are all 18. There are a couple exceptions to this though, in Geraldo Medrano and Miguel Marcelo, so I'm very curious if we're able to take them in either the first or the second round. Now after another week of scouting though, I found an interesting prospect in Freddie Young. Ranked as the 79th player in the draft, he is 22 years old with a guaranteed high potential, but my favorite part about him is his contact. That is hands down the most important stat in the game, and his is looking very good. We're gonna throw him right on the board and just hope that he's a solid player. In season number 1, we're gonna keep this sim pretty quick as we're actually winning series now, including one against Baltimore and one against Boston, but I'm not exactly counting on a comeback. Then on the scouting end of things, we are done looking at pitchers, which means my full focus is turned towards scouting and discovering position guys. Much to my surprise, we've actually found quite a few draftable position guys, which is definitely going to make this a lot easier. This includes 2 high potential second basemen, along with a third baseman, which will be massive. Then there's guys like Freddie Young and Eric Pena, who I definitely want to get as well. Only being able to draft college guys is actually working out really well for us. However, I'm still hoping that Discovery can give us something, and there is the number 18 player and the number 23 player. That is clutch. We still have not scouted a shortstop, so I'm throwing Roger Ibarra right on the board. We are now just 2 weeks away from the draft and have a chance to make a splash, and after scouting our shortstop, while he still looks okay, he does go down in ranking. Just like any rebuild, we've really got to nail this first draft, and I feel like we have the draft board to be able to do that. The obvious number 1 pick is going to be Eric Pena. We've known that since pretty much the beginning, but after him, I'm not really sure where to go at the other selections. There's a lot of really good players on the board, which is certainly a good problem to have, and that actually includes a bunch of really good pitchers that I'm very interested in taking in the second round. There's a very little chance that Eric Pena gets scooped up before our selection, as sure enough he's available, making our first pick of the draft drama-free. We are taking the best player available, and getting a center fielder this early is a huge deal. Then in CB Round A, I wasn't expecting Miguel Marcelo to be here, but he is the best available player on the board and will be my selection at 36. Then in round 2, instead of taking another pitcher, we're going back to position guys, taking Freddie Young. During my planning in this draft, this was the guy that I wanted to take in the second round, as there's very little chance he lasts to our next selection, and his contact is way too good to pass on. Right off the bat, that's 2 outfielders and a pitcher that we've selected, and just checking on my board, we're still in a very good spot with 3 discovery guys available, so I'm going to take Alan Kohler, who's the best available non-discovery guy. It seems that the rest of the league does not know about Arden Wordkemper along with Chris Valentine, which means we should be able to get them at the end of the draft. That allows us to take Rusty Griffin in round 4 before doubling up on third base with Word Kemper. Now with our final selection, we're going back to starting pitcher, where lefty Chris Valentine has already lasted this long and should be a good ceiling player. We needed a good draft, and we absolutely got it before winning our last game before the break, getting us to 30 and 67. Then looking at the stats, David VR is leading the team with RBIs and home runs, but is hitting .217. That is pretty much going to be the best performance on the squad, as not too many players are doing much better than that. Then in the rotation, it once again seems that things are only getting worse, although Dalton Jeffries has won us 6 games. A 6-9 record is actually pretty nice for season 1. We didn't have a legitimate all-star this season, but Jace Peterson is our one representative, and considering he's hitting 171, that is a really interesting decision. Out of everybody on the team, I'm not sure why he was the guy who got in, but nonetheless, it doesn't really matter for this first year. That being said, with our entire draft class signed, we're gonna sim to the first of the month and see what's going on. At the start of August, we're sitting around the same win percentage with a 33 and 78 record, so this season is a complete loss as we rank last in every single stat. At least now though, we can end season number 1 viewing our draft class, and I'm very excited about Eric Pena. We're jumping straight into it and see that he is 61 overall with 92 potential, and that power is elite. Make no mistake, it's gonna take some time for that contact to develop, especially with a 26 rating versus righties, but considering we were restricted to college players, that is a perfectly fine first selection. We started things off strong before taking a pitcher in Miguel Marcelo, who's 63 overall. He has 91 potential with a pretty well-balanced skill set, and I feel like he could be a future addition to this rotation. And then Freddie Young and our next 3 players all have 92 potential. That is an absolutely crazy poll, with Freddie Young being the best of the bunch with 70 contact versus right, and he's coming in with 59 overall right out the gate. While I'm very excited about Pena, I do want to say that my money's on Freddie Young to make it up to the show first. He's got a much more pro-ready skill set, and I think we could see him up at the majors within the first couple seasons. With our next 2 selections, we doubled up on the infield, taking a pair of 22-year-olds who are both projects. However, then in round 5, we took Arden Word Kemper, and the fact that he was available at all was awesome. 81 potential's a bit of a disappointment, but he's coming in with very good contact and plate skills, and a skill set that sort of resembles Freddie Young. Just like Young, we could see Word Kemper at the show within the next couple years. All things considered, we crushed this first draft, taking 5 players with 90 potential or more, and then closed things out with another starting pitcher in Chris Valentine. That draft was pretty much the only important thing we had to do this year, so we're going to be simulating all the way to the end of the season. We would finish with a 46 and 116 record, which is absolutely atrocious. I don't see any reason to look at these stats, but just for the lulz, we're going to do it anyways. However, seeing that our best power hitter was Jace Peterson, I think that tells you all you need to know about the year. With so many washed up veterans on this team, I don't think the question is who isn't coming back as much as it is who actually will be on the team next year. There's a good chance that our entire major league roster is going to hit free agency, meaning that we're starting from scratch. As far as pending free agents go, the only guy we're going to try to bring back is Eloy Jimenez, who is 69 overall and only wants about $1 million a year. Then from there, we're firing the entire staff, hopefully replacing them with better upgrades. I think it's only fair that anybody with C potential should get another shot, although the number of players on this roster that applies to is certainly limited. That pretty much leaves the entire rest of the roster to go to free agency though, so we're picking from the bottom of the barrel. On the bright side though, I did just find an undrafted player who should help us out. If you remember, Tom C was a top 5 player on our draft board, but for some reason he did not get signed and is now in the free agent pool. While he's 18 years old, the restrictions of the video stated that we only had to draft college players, and because Tom C is an undrafted free agent, he does not apply. We're gonna have to compete with other teams, but there's a chance for us to bring in a 74 overall B potential pitcher, and that can make all the difference for the rebuild. I've gone ahead and started to dump this roster down to 74 players, which is certainly less than it was before at 94. In return, we've also brought in a few players like Cal Quantrill and Jonathan Loaisaga, who should help out our pitching. The big signing though is Tom C, and unfortunately it seems he has some interest from the Astros and the Orioles, so we gotta make a move sooner rather than later. We're giving him 4 years at $3 million a year, and then after that he has was 2 years of arbitration. We had to offer him more than what he was asking for, but I'm really hoping that he signs with us to give us a good piece to start the rebuild. As you can see though, we're going to the phones, which is never a good sign. Please, oh, he signed with the Astros. That sucks. We offered him more money, but he just didn't want to come here. I can't really blame him. That would have been a great pull in our first offseason, but unfortunately, we're not exactly coming off a great year. Just to get someone in the building, let's throw Ryan Feltner on the board. But aside from that, there's not really much here. I guess the best move is to bring back JT Brubacher for another year. He's not even interested. However, I will go ahead and sign a third baseman in Santiago Espinal, who can really hit lefties well, which we need. He wants 1 year for $2.5 a year, but I actually want to give him a multi-year deal for about $2.7. We're projected to have the #1 overall pick, and remember that next year we're not necessarily restricted to just college players. That being said, it is really important that we don't tank in this lottery, as we're simming it out, and that's not bad. The Rockies do jump us for #1, but we're still hanging in at #2. We also have the Rule 5 draft on tap, but before we get there, I want to see if we can bring in another dynamic bat in MJ Melendez. I will say that he's still relatively unproven in his career, but he only played 6 games this last season for Kansas City, and the power is certainly there. 78 overall would be the best player on the roster, so I'm going to see if we can get him on a 3-year deal worth about 3.5. The Rule 5 draft is always the best place to grab pitchers, and right off the bat, we're seeing a few guys in the mid to high 70s. I've signed Matt Waldron in the past couple franchises that I've done, so I'm not going to pull the trigger here, but we do need an upgrade at catcher, and I'm seeing Eric Haas. He is 33 years old, but at 75 overall, I feel like he's about as balanced of a player as we're going to get here. Then after that, we took a filler player at shortstop, along with a whole bunch of pitchers. Simming after the draft though, we do bring in MJ Melendez. That is a big addition that gives us our best player on offense, and hopefully someone who can continue to develop into a good hitter. We do have him for the next 3 years, so anything can happen. We have made it through our first offseason, and while the team is leaps and bounds better than it was in season 1, we're still the worst team on paper by a long shot. It's not even close. The lineup itself is okay, but having Eloy Jimenez batting third is not a good look for any team. Then on top of that, we have 2 relief pitchers in our bullpen, and while I am hoping that Christian Scott and Brian Hoying can be positive additions to the rotation, Cal Quantrill is certainly not an ace. If there's one positive of this team though, I truly believe it's the bullpen, as we signed Albert Suarez, who may be 36 years old, but has a potential at 74 overall. With only 3 years of experience, I do believe there's something left in his tank, and I'm excited to see if he can be a positive addition. Then after that, we have Nick Sandlin, Jonathan Loaisaga, and plenty of other players who can come in and hopefully eat some innings. Then at closer, I decided to bring back a former Ray and Hunter Biggie, who of course was released into free agency when this team was first made, but he's still 27 years old with B potential. I'm excited to see how this team does, but of course the entire season 2 is gonna be about this farm system. Every single player that we drafted is going into AA, and their development is so important to our future success, so we're definitely gonna be keeping an eye on it. We're ready to start the season, but remember, before we do that, we have to spin from the wheel of chaos, and I'm really hoping it does not affect us. What's it gonna be? No. We just signed MJ Melendez, but before the season even starts, we're gonna be forced to trade him away. However, because we did just sign him, we're actually not allowed to trade him yet, so I'm just gonna send him down to Class A. That is really gonna hurt us, but with one spot on the 26-man roster, we're gonna bring in Luke Raley, who at least has a similar skill set. Make no mistake though, he's a significant downgrade, and losing Melendez really hurts. I really wish we could keep Melendez, but looking at the top 100 prospects list, I'm also not seeing any of our guys on it. It's certainly much rarer for college guys to be on the list, as you can see Tom C made it at 64, but as we scroll down, I'm expecting somebody to be on it. There is Eric Ullman, and then at 82, our first round pick, Eric Pena. My expectations for the year are as low as they can get, and that's not a good start. Our third baseman is unable to corral a line out, and then on the very next pitch, our catcher cannot handle that, and the base is stolen. It seems we have lost all of our momentum, and Vlad Jr. is gonna watch that one go, sending it down the left field line, and that stays fair for a home run. Despite having a better team, this opening day is going pretty much the opposite as last opening day, as Luke Raley gives us a drive into right center field, and if that was MJ Melendez, that's out of the park. Therefore, 2 innings in, we have still not gotten our first hit, But here comes Connor Joe. That's gonna be a double. One of our new free agent signings was the first guy to get on base, but it's not gonna make a difference. They scored 3 more runs, and we were not gonna pull much more offense together. We're in danger of being shut out in the bottom of the 8th, and that might have just sealed it. Despite an improved team, we were not better on opening day, but simming forward to April, we would actually win our first 2 games of the month. That will set our record to 3-6, as we're surprisingly hanging in there. After a rocky start, that is the same record that we had at the beginning of last year, so it seems we have not taken the step back that I feared. That will send us into scouting, where we have the number 2 overall pick and a great chance to make an impact. Even though this class starts with 6 starting pitchers in a row, my goal is to take a position guy, and the first player I'm scouting is first baseman Gerald Hansen. At 99 potential and 80 overall, there is a chance for him to be generational, but overall, he's looking like a very good hitter. While I'm also interested in players like Beckett Richardson and the rest of the position players high on the board, I feel like Hansen has the highest upside. Now that we can draft high school players, I think this draft becomes even more important, and what in the world is going on? We have started the month of April out with 5 wins out of our first 6 games, and suddenly we're back to 500. I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and it seems that Santiago Espinal is absolutely raking, at least for our standards. The same can also be said for Eloy Jimenez, who's proving to be a very smart re-sign. This is really exciting, but with the way our rotation's playing, I'm not exactly expecting the good fortune to last. We're fighting to stay above 500, and this series against Washington is really important. They're the worst team we've played all year, so this series is very important, and there's Connor Joe again. He ties the game up with a 2-run RBI single. That is such a clutch move in the bottom of the 8th inning, as this is sent well into left field, but stays in the yard. There's a great chance we could be going to extra innings, as Hunter Biggie's trying to hold it down, and he does. That is going to give us the chance to walk it off in front of our home crowd and gain a ton of confidence. Our fans aren't exactly behind us after a 40-win season, so it'd be good to give them something special. However, in extra innings, the stakes are higher than ever, as Hunter Biggie is trying to hold it down, but has loaded bases. We have to go for the double play here, although a pop-up behind home plate also works. That means we're just 1 out away, and there's a swing and miss on the curve. That will give a chance for the top of our lineup to win this game, as we advance the runner to third. Now with 2 away, it is up to one of our best players, Santiago Espinal, who watches this one go deep into left center field and walks it off for the Party Animals. That is the biggest signature victory we've had so far in the first game of the series against Washington. All he needed was a single, but why not go out in style with a massive dinger? That was the biggest win of the video so far to bring our record to 8-10, and now simming forward, we actually lose the next game. That will even the series at 1 game apiece, and here we go, we simulate it and lose the series. That is not ideal. Not what I wanted to see happen after that big time win, as we also dropped 2 to the Athletics. But on the bright side, Gerald Hansen is absolutely that dude. He's the number 2 player in the class. That could be subject to change as we scout more players, but I would be fully comfortable taking him with our first selection. As the number 11 player, he should most definitely be there at number 2, and I'm hoping that we also discover some pitchers so we don't feel obligated to take one of these guys at the top of the board. At least from my experience, I pretty much always approach the pitchers like that, where I might take a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round, but I'm mostly looking for those late round gems so I can take offense earlier on. We are moving to later rounds, where I see Ricky Gonzalez, and as a switch hitter at 18 years old with pretty low ratings and a wide gap, I can assume with confidence he's gonna be pretty good. Meanwhile, on the field though, we're gonna see if we can start to rally back, as we have lost 5 and now 6 games in a row to various teams. Then after fully scouting Ricky Gonzalez, we can see that he is ranked 43 in the class, which is right around where we wanted him to be. That is a solid option at number 40, but my real hope there is that he can fall to number 69. We'll have to see. I'm also going to scout another center fielder though, who also has a similar ceiling. At the start of May, things are not looking good for us, as we have dropped all the way down to 13-24, and while some players like Santiago Espinal really started the season on a good note, everybody's gone on a cold streak pretty much ever since. There are only 2 guys above 700 OPS, which needs to change moving forward. And then in the rotation, am I seeing anything good? Maybe Brian Hoying, and JT Ginn has also been nice. After scouting our next position player, we can see that Chris Mosquera also looks really good. That is a big deal to give us another option in the 2nd or maybe even 3rd round. Unlike last year, we're no longer restricted to drafting only college college players, and I'm trying to take full advantage of that. I'm pretty confident that Alec Cruz is going to have potential in the 90s just because of how bad his overall is, so he will be the next player we scout. Also on the scouting end of things, we just found potentially the new #1 player in the class in Trevor Hurley. He's a third baseman with a very high ceiling, along with a great floor as well, and with that contact, I feel like I have to take him. As a discovery player though, I'm gonna hope that he falls later in the draft because that would be a great value. The board is looking really good as we have 2 options in the first round that I'm really narrowed in on in Kirk Sams and Gerald Hansen. Being the position player, of course, Hansen is the #1 player on my board, although if he's gone, Sams would also be great. After the first round though, we also have a ton of options on the board like Alvaro Cortez at starting pitcher, along with a couple of discovery guys, but the player I'm really gonna lock in on here is Trevor Hurley. As a not ranked position guy, you don't really know where he's gonna go, and I cannot miss out on adding a player with that type of contact. With the #2 overall pick, all we can do is hope that the Rockies don't select the guy that we want. They are taking Hansen. Of course they do. I'm a little frustrated by that because he was the guy I wanted the whole time, but Sams is technically the higher ranked player, so we're gonna go ahead and take him. Taking a pitcher at #2 is not what I wanted to do, but at least Sams is gonna be good. Now simming to our next selection though, I do see a lot of options are off the board. Looking down the board though, I'm not really seeing anything too major, although my initial plan for this pick was Alvaro Cortez. That said, I'm kinda glad it worked out because Sams is the better player, so now with this selection, I'm kinda torn between what I should do. Trevor Hurley would be the obvious selection here as a third baseman with a great ceiling, and just looking at the other options, I'm seeing a lot of not ranked players, so that might be the best move. One of these outfielders should be able to fall to our next selection, so we're gonna go ahead and take the best player available at a position of need. Hurley definitely makes up for missing out on Hansen, and now simming forward, it looks like our discovery guys are mostly still on the board, along with a few of my favorite outfielders. So we're gonna double up at position guys at pick number 69, going for Aldo Hinojosa. I don't know how to say that, I'm just gonna take him. Switch hitter, can't complain. Now in round 3, we're gonna stay on a similar note, going for a speedy center fielder just to do it. Then in round 4, I'm also gonna take a versatile shortstop with a very high ceiling. That seemed to be the right decision, as with 2 rounds to go, pitchers are the only players left on the board, and we're gonna start out taking the best one in Matt Oliver. He's got a very good walks per 9 and could join the rotation soon. Then to wrap things up, just give me the best ceiling guy, it looks like Bill Klein. That will close out another very successful draft, as we may have missed out on our top target, but ended up getting a pretty good balance of players. Going into the All-Star break though, we needed some good news because we are down 9 games to the next best team. At the beginning of the year, the Wheel of Chaos took away our best player in MJ Melendez, and it's resulted in this season being even tougher offensively than we thought. We have 3 players above 700 OPS though, and it seems that Cody Clemens is actually putting together a solid year. Then there's Luke Raley, who's leading the team in RBIs, but has a pretty rough batting average and could be a little bit better. Our best all-around hitter might actually be Weston Wilson, who looks like he can hit righties and lefties at least decently well. That's all I'm really asking for. After that though, the rest of the offense has been extremely rough, and I'm not really sure how to improve it. It is going to be another rough offseason, but at least for some good news, Brian Hoying and Christian Scott are dominating in the rotation. These are much better numbers than I was expecting, and the same thing can be said for JT Ginn, who has a very similar ERA and WHIP. Unfortunately though, Ryan Feltner and Cal Quantrill have been really bad though, so the positives don't really continue after that. Just like last year, I think our priority is to just sign our draft picks and be done with the year. We sim past the deadline and are now 42-70, so not really improving at all. That being said, we're gonna jump right into viewing our draft class, which ended up looking pretty okay, with the exception of Trevor Hurley. Unfortunately, in his case, he was not the player that he was advertised to be, and ended up being an absolute bust. I still feel like he could develop, but that's a really tough break for a player that I really thought was gonna be a core player of the future. That is especially concerning considering that I was relying on him to replace Gerald Hansen, who went right in front of us at #1 overall and ended up being 75 overall with 94 potential. Fair to say the third baseman is not exactly that type of player. To make things even worse, I drafted him over a guy like Edward Saldana, who would have no doubt been the closer of the future. Usually our hit rates on prospects are pretty solid, but missing out on a guy like Hurley really really stings and is kind of embarrassing. Fortunately though, with our next selection, we made up for it, taking Aldo Hinojosa, and I really need to learn how to say that name. The reason for that is he is 62 overall and 99 potential, which is amazing. There's a very good chance that he's our right fielder of the future, along with Chris Mosquera, our center fielder. He is 90 potential and 55 overall, while Kevin Ramirez, the shortstop, comes in at 94 potential and 55 overall. It's really nice to know that 3 out of 4 of our infielders ended up being really good, while Kirk Sams, Matt Oliver, and Bill Klein make a really nice trio at starting pitcher. Just like last year, we take 3 starting pitchers, so our future rotation's looking really solid. We're slowly but surely building something special in Savannah, but of course it's gonna take some more time for the farm to solidify. On the field though, Savannah finished just under 100 losses at 63 and 99. Even though we were not a good team by any means, we finished significantly better than the year before, where we had 48 wins, so despite not feeling like it, this rebuild is actually on a good pace. We finish off with 2 players with 700 OPS or above, with Luke Raley and then Santiago Espinal getting significantly better as the year goes on. He is really good at hitting lefties, so we definitely need him at his best. Then as for Raley, he's kind of the opposite, only being able to hit righties, but it seems he did it pretty well. Honestly though, the rest of the offense was kind of disappointing, and I was really hoping that more players would step it up. When I signed players like Connor Joe and Dominic Fletcher, I was really hoping that they would have better seasons than they did, and it's the same story with the rotation, where Christian Scott was taken off the 26-man roster by the CPU, but that might not have been the right decision, as Cal Quantrill and Ryan Feltner were significantly worse. On the bright side though, it does look like Brian Hoying and JT Ginn both stayed strong throughout the year. The same can be said for the bullpen, as Albert Suarez had a solid first year with the Party Animals, and Luis Ortiz was actually really good. Coming into the year, we knew that our bullpen was going to be the strength of the team, and that was certainly the case, as there were actually not many weaknesses here. Along with that, I want to go back to the Season 1 draft, where players like Arden Word-Kemper, Freddie Young, and Miguel Marcelo could be closing in on their major league debuts. Then simming to the end of the year, the Mets defeated the Tigers in the World Series. Now that we know a little bit more about the team and the direction that we're trying to go, I'm going to trade Wasker Yanoa to the Red Sox for Brandon Clark. We don't really need him, and he was going to be expensive in arbitration. Also, considering that Kirk Sams and Miguel Marcelo are on the way up, I don't think starting pitcher is nearly as big of a need. Moving forward, I'm very comfortable with Brian Hoying and Christian Scott, and JT Ginn also played his way into next year's rotation. Going into free agency, the one position we have not addressed on any front yet is catcher. There was not a single good one in our first 2 drafts, so I feel like we need to address free agency for this, and we're going to go after the biggest fish available, Ryan Jeffers. In order to realistically get him though, we're going to have to offer him a lot more than he's asking for, and that is not going to be an easy feat. He only wants 3 years for $12.8 million a year, but I'm thinking more like 5 or 6 for a lot more. That would be easily the biggest free agent signing we've made so far, and also we're going to go after Ha-Sung Kim. We could really use an upgrade at shortstop, and this is a low-risk, high-reward player. Then after missing out on Hansen, the first baseman who went number 1 overall, I feel like we have to bring in some sort of reinforcement, and at this point the most realistic option for us is Ty France. He is a really well-balanced hitter and can apparently play other positions in a pinch. This is a really different strategy than our first offseason, and hopefully it works out in our favor. After simulating though, I see that Ryan Jeffers is not very interested, and he is already preparing to make his decisions, so we need to make an impact fast. We are offering him 5 years for $16 million a year, and even that might not be enough. That was the max years and the max money we could have offered, but unfortunately we're getting a call, and he will be returning to Minnesota. That's a rough start to the offseason, but certainly not unexpected, so I'm going to actually make a trade with the Marlins. Liam Hicks has B potential, but he's coming off of a really rough season, so the Marlins are looking to move on. While Hicks would be a good investment though, the Marlins are not going to move on easily, as Hurley and Valentine are not enough to get it done. He is not going to be an option for us, so we're turning our attention to somebody else, and I found Moises Ballesteros. Right now, he is buried on the depth chart by Carson Kelly, who's under contract for the next 3 seasons. That being said, we're gonna see what they want for him, and Chris Valentine nearly gets that done. We once again have to give up Valentine, but for a player like Ballesteros, I feel like it's very worth it. He is a very well-balanced hitter and should be our catcher for a long time. We have filled our biggest need of the offseason, but I'm also looking to replace MJ Melendez with Gavin Sheets. He is 78 overall with B potential, and on top of that, has actually learned how to hit lefties. He would be a great solution at either left field, first base, or DH. Then simming forward, we sign Ha-Sung Kim, and just a day later, Ty France is not quite there yet. Regardless though, it doesn't look like anyone's interested in him, so I'm not really worried about it. We're giving him another contract, along with Gavin Sheets. I do have to say before we move forward that one bug that has not been fixed with this game is really good catchers frequently hitting free agency. For some reason, teams do not want to sign their catcher prospects, and Ethan Salas is the latest example of that. If I wanted to exploit the game, he could be our catcher of the future, but I'm not gonna do that. Nonetheless though, Ty France did sign next time around for a year more than he wanted. That will send us into the draft lottery, where we had the 5th worst record in the league. That being said, we only have a 10% chance to get the #1 pick, but maybe we can get lucky and we move up 2 slots. That will bring us to the Rule 5 draft, where one of the best players available is Garrett Clevenger. As a B potential player with 92 walks per 9, I wasn't expecting him to be here, but just because he is, and because he's a former Ray, I'm gonna bring him in. Then from there, we're actually gonna go back to the bullpen, taking Eli Morgan. He's a very similar situation, and I cannot pass him up. Another former Ray is available in Trey Morgan, and even though he's 59 overall, his potential is sky high, and I feel like it would be criminal to not at least give him a shot at the major league level. Usually I wouldn't do this, but the contact and plate skills are in a very good spot, so I'm gonna see if he can make the roster. At the very worst, we send him back to Baltimore. Then to close things out, we're gonna bring in Dylan Dodd, who is a former starting pitcher, and with 63 stamina, along with good hits and walks per 9, that is where he's gonna move back to. That could potentially be a very good find to end the draft. Overall, with the improvement of our farm system, this was exactly the offense we needed as we bring in Clevenger, Ty France, along with a brand new catcher, which we desperately needed. We're also going to be taking a chance on Ha-Sung Kim, which gives us an upgrade at shortstop. Even with the improvements though, we may not be done, as I'm trying to add Dane Myers as a center fielder / utility option. He can play center field along with everywhere in the infield, which is a really cool combination. Along with that, we're going to offer Gavin Sheets a contract, and after a few days, we would sign him. Then our final addition to the offseason is Dane Myers. At 82 overall, he is the new best player on the team, and I'm hoping that the Wheel of Chaos doesn't make me trade him as well. Now that we're entering the new season though, it is time to spin the wheel, and what are we landing on? Free agency limit. I feel like that one is actually okay, as our team is not going to be affected until the offseason, but we're going to have to be very selective about who we choose to go after. Checking out our opening day lineup, our 5 new additions definitely make us a much better lineup, as Ty France hits second with Ballesteros, Myers, and Sheets coming in at 5, 6, and 7. Then against lefties though, it definitely changes with Kim and Myers leading the charge, while both France and Sheets are both still serviceable. Then in the rotation, Christian Scott will be our opening day starter with Brian Hoying and Dylan Dodd at 2 and 3. That is 3 relief pitchers at the top of our rotation, so hopefully they either break out or our young starting pitchers can overtake them. Then at number 4, we've got JT Ginn and Cal Quantrill going from our ace all the way down to number 5. Then the bullpen is also much better with the addition of Eli Morgan and Garrett Clevenger. We've improved, but now we're taking on the Yankees on opening day. The game started out with Ty France getting hit, and now one of the other new additions bloops a single into center field. That will get 2 runners on base, but unfortunately Ballesteros is not able to score them. That is a huge missed opportunity, but simming forward, Christian Scott is playing really well. That is at least going to keep us in the game, but sooner rather than later, I would like our offense to wake up against Max Fried. Through 5 innings, Scott has still only given up 1 hit to this Yankees offense, and he deserves a lot of credit considering this offense still has Aaron Judge and Junior Caminero. Right as I say that though, Judge goes deep, and they're looking to close us out. The offense is still the weakness of the squad, even after revamping it, as the Yankees get an easy win. Even though Christian Scott was excellent, giving up 3 hits and 1 run, the offense was miserable. Simming the rest of the series, we need to figure this out, as the Yankees are going to be able to sweep us. On a positive note though, we do have the #1 farm system in the league with the #1 prospect in Aldo Hinojosa. I figured out how to say it. The 99 potential right fielder will be making his debut in Double-A, which I'm very excited for. He is 1, but then coming in at number 18 is Bill Klein. That's a bit of a surprise as he was the final selection of our previous draft, but nonetheless does have great potential. He comes in at number 18, and then at number 29 is Kirk Sams. I feel like Sam should be ranked higher, but nonetheless, he is just the third of many top 100 guys. I feel like players like Miguel Marcelo, Kevin Ramirez, and Freddie Young are all being crazy slept on. Going into our first week of scouting, we are 2-7, which is not ideal. I'm really hoping that our offense can figure it out because we're really depending on Gavin Sheets and Ty France to figure it out. As for the draft though, we do have the number 3 overall pick and a great chance to add another impact player. Of course though, right after getting Ballestero, a good catcher pops up in Eric Pear. He looks to be a balanced player with a very good ceiling and a solid floor. It looks like he has a good chance to be good, so I'm going to make him the first player we scout, along with, of course, the international pitchers. We have drafted 6 pitchers in 2 years, so it's not as big of a priority, although I'm always open to it. Heading towards the end of April, we are 10-19, so things aren't exactly working out well for us, although we do win 4 out of our last 5 games of the month. That will take us to 12-20 at the start of May, and checking out the stats, I'm really hoping that our offense is starting to heat up because it is not looking good so far. There's only one starter with an OPS above 700, and that is Weston Wilson, so fair to say that all of our new additions have disappointed so far. Then in the rotation, Christian Scott, after holding the Yankees to 3 hits, is struggling. And aside from Dylan Dodd and JT Ginn, it seems the rotation is just as bad. On the scouting end of things though, we just discovered an absolute gem. Kenny Bird is ranked 55 in the class, but we've got him at 17 and for a very good reason. His fielding and plate skills are definitely not there, but the power is the big reason that I would draft this guy. Ever since I showed the stats though, things have actually been going a lot better, and I'm curious if it's gonna stay that way. Right as I say that though, we just lost a series to the Blue Jays, who are in 4th in the division. We are 4 games behind them, trying to catch up and not be last in the AL East, but on the scouting side of things, we found another gem third baseman. Gil Garcia is even better than the last guy we found, going from 113 to number 7. That is another huge find, and if I can take both players, I definitely will. This is a really big month of June, and while we have been able to win a few more games than the start of the year, we're still losing almost every single series. That's why I'm especially surprised to see that we're officially in 4th place over the Blue Jays, who are in the World Series. I'm not sure how long this is gonna last, but I do see that several players are now on hot streaks, which we've been waiting for all year. One of those guys is Santiago Espinal, who's in the final year of his contract, although it does look like he's still regressing. Nonetheless, he's really good against lefties, so there's no point in taking him out of the lineup or even trading him, as right up there with him are Ty France and Gavin Sheets. It's very nice to see that they've turned things around, as Sheets is up to 80 overall and France is up to 76. I also see that Christian Scott and Brian Hoying are both kind of turning their years around, along with Dylan Dodd. I'm really counting on this streak continuing, but now we're facing a few good teams and haven't won a single game in July. That will take us straight into the draft, where we have the number 3 overall pick, and unless a sure prospect like Emil Valdez falls, I'm very comfortable drafting for need and taking Eric Pear. It's a bit of a reach, but he should be on the board by the time our selection comes around and seems to be a good catcher. Then with our next selection at 37 though, I am down to take one of these starting pitchers, with my eye being most on Luis Guzman. Then of course we've got the 2 third basemen in Gil Garcia and Kenny Bird that I'm very excited about. We also do need a closing pitcher, and it's a very loaded class with 2 discovery guys and a very premier prospect in Junior Hanna. No matter what happens here, I really feel like we can't do wrong. We only have to wait 2 teams for our first selection, as the Nationals are taking Emil Valdez at number 1. That was a pipe dream that wasn't gonna happen. That will leave just 1 pick before our selection, and they're going with Dino Castro. That is gonna make our decision very easy, as the only 3 guys in front of him are all pitchers ranked in the 2nd round, so we are taking our guy without any hesitation. After that though, I am kinda curious who's gonna last, and it seems that 2 of my pitchers are gone. Luis Guzman only lasted to number 6, so that was never gonna happen. Garcia especially was the number 11 player on my board, but assuming that the draft had him at number 113, I thought we could snag him. That is really not a good start for us, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with our next selection. This is already a very weak position player class, as I don't have any outfielders actually scouted, unlike the previous couple years. Because of that, I'm actually just just gonna take the best player available in closing pitcher Junior Hanna and just hope we get lucky. Usually closers work out pretty good, so I'm not too concerned. This draft has not gone the way that I want it to, but we do get a really good value here in Eloy McAllister. He's 21 years old, but does have a good ceiling, so we're gonna take a shot on him. Then with our next selection at 83, I'm hoping that Connie Harrington can fall, but chances are we're gonna be taking someone a bit more underwhelming. Simming forward though, Harrington is available, so I feel like we get pretty lucky. That's a pretty good selection, but then at 103, one of my favorite Discovery infielders goes off the board, which puts us in a weird spot. We already took a second baseman, and Christopher Law just doesn't look like the guy, so I'm either taking a flyer on somebody or taking a starting pitcher. As you can see, Riley Brady does have a really good walks per 9, so he's gonna be my guy in the 4th round. Then moving forward, why not just take the best player on the board? We're going for Jeffrey Rhodes. This was probably our worst draft class yet, but I'm still pretty confident with how it turned out. With our final selection, let's just take a starting pitcher and get out of here. At 42 and 60, our team is better than it was last year, but I still don't feel like it's anything special, although we are still in 4th place. On the bright side though, we are winning quite a few games out of the break, so maybe this season isn't all lost. We're definitely not a buying team, but I'm still gonna check out the trade deadline just to see if there's something there. I'm always very intrigued in Kobe Mayo because he does have a lot of power and a potential, but on top of that, he's pretty much completely reached bust status with Baltimore. He has 3 years remaining on his contract, and he would be the type of player that I could see us making a flyer on. Just for realism though, I'm gonna wait to make any moves until the offseason because I feel like that's when he would be traded. We are looking to sweep the New York Yankees, but unfortunately lose 9-0 with 2 days to go before the deadline. With several players in the last year of their deal, I would be interested in selling, although I'm not seeing anybody aside from Santiago Espinal. He has gotten himself up to 80 overall, and signing an extension would just not make very much sense. So at the deadline, we're just gonna see what we can get. We're trying to trade him to a contending team that needs help at third base, and no team is better than the Mariners. They've been in the playoffs every year of the rebuild and are looking to win the World Series, and they have a prospect that I'm very interested in. We are continuing our trend of bringing back former Rays with Xavier Isaac, as he is their number 2 first baseman, and they are very interested in making this deal. That is a really good return for Santiago Espinal, and after that, I don't really think any other players are worthy of being traded. The only other player I can think of is Ryan Feltner, but he has a 6.6 ERA and nobody would want him. That will take us into August, where very quickly we drop right back down to last place, so it's time to view the draft. I will say that at least from a talent level, this one was not up to par with previous classes, but I still feel like we got some good players, and that is certainly the case. Starting at the top, we took the safest selection we could in Eric Pear, although I'm a bit disappointed in his potential. 87 potential is not great for a guy you draft at number 3 overall, but at least the closer that we took ended up being solid. I will say that scrolling through the other players in the first round, I'm not really seeing a lot of talent, although you've gotta be kidding me. We were so busy scouting Eric Pear that we didn't even notice that there was another catcher named DeMarcus Lombardo who is definitely better. At 63 overall and 94 potential, he should have been the guy we took. That is a massive fumble, as Gil Garcia also ended up being great. We definitely got complacent in the first round and paid the price, as the Rockies ended up with 2 of the good pitchers that I wanted. I definitely jumped the gun on Pear, but at least we get the best closer in the class, along with Eloy McAllister, who has 92 potential. That is another quality infielder before going back to shortstop with Connie Harrington, and then taking a few more solid players to close out the draft. I feel like we did the best we could given the lack of talent in the draft, although it would have been great to get that catcher. It's also worth mentioning that our last draft class and the class before that have a lot of players who are getting ready to come up probably as soon as next year. The biggest name of the bunch is probably 74 overall starting pitcher Kirk Sams. He could definitely be in the rotation right now, but with the state of the team, it's probably better to give him more time in AAA. The same could also be said for Eric Pena, although even though he's 70 overall, I feel like his offense still has a bit of a ways to go. I'm also interested in seeing what Arden Wordkemper can do at 72 overall with really good contact. After a terrible month of August, we are 7 games behind the Blue Jays, which is not good. I'm not too surprised considering that we traded Santiago Espinal, but the rest of the offense has been underperforming. Most notably notably, aside from Ty France, the new additions have not really been doing their thing, while we've seen great regression from Luke Raley. Add in the fact that Ha-Sung Kim has not been the player that we wanted him to be, and it's very easy to see why the offense has been dead last in the league in pretty much everything. Then in the rotation, our top two guys have been pretty good, while Dylan Dodd's been solid, but is on a cold streak. After that though, JT Ginn has really fallen off, while Cal Quantrill is not playing terrible. For the rest of the season, I'm really just hoping that we can get back to our win total from last year, but after losing even more games in a row, it's not looking like it's gonna happen. We finally won our first game of the month against Baltimore before winning a few more and finishing 58-104. I know we traded Santiago Espinal, but I was not expecting to get 5 games worse than last year, especially after who we brought in. It's very fair to say that Gavin Sheets and Dane Myers underperformed, along with previous players who were successful like Luke Raley. I know that things may seem dire for the end of Season 3, but we did find our catcher, and Ty France looked pretty solid. Add in that we found some gems in the bullpen, along with the rotation, and have prospects coming up next year, and it's a lot easier to be excited about the team. As far as free agents go, I definitely want to bring back Jonathan Loaizaga, as he's 33 years old, but has been one of our best relievers. But after that, everybody's gonna walk. We really need to improve this team, but the big thing about this offseason is we're restricted to 3 players in free agency. That being said, it's definitely gonna become a quality over quantity approach, and signing depth players is not an option. I will say though, while I'm not gonna be going after someone like Alex Bregman, for example, bringing back Santiago Espinal might actually be a good value. He is only asking for a 2-year contract worth $8.5 million, and would certainly be a valuable part of the offense. I feel like the best thing we can do is just throw him on the board and see if he wants to sign. Then after that though, I'm not really sure who else I could go after, as we certainly need some new bats, and this might be a good option. But if we can get someone like Tanner Huck or Sandy Alcantara for cheap, that might be the move. We're throwing Alcantara on the board and hoping for the best. Then just to clear up some more cash, I'm gonna trade Luke Raley for whatever we can get for him. With a 60% motivation to sign and nobody interested, I think there's actually a chance for us to go out and get Sandy Alcantara. We've been looking for an ace for quite a while now, and at 89 overall with A potential, Sandy's still got something left in the tank. In order to sign him realistically though, I feel like we need to go over his demand at 4 years and give him around the same contract. That would be our first out of 3 free agents, and there we go, the extra years was enough to convince him to come aboard. We have signed our best player of the entire video so far, and hopefully have a couple more additions coming. Both players are ready for deals, but with nobody else interested, I'm gonna wait a little bit longer and get the motivation up. We did have the worst record in the league once again, so we are in line for the #1 pick, but have to hope we don't get jumped. This is a great chance for us to get a generational player, but unfortunately we get unlucky. That is a really unlucky break for us, as we have not gotten the first overall pick in the entire video, but now in the Rule 5 draft, we are bringing back another former Tampa Bay Ray in Christopher Morel. Unironically though, he's actually a really good fit for this team with great power and a ton of utility. He has a chance to upgrade our lineup and replace Luke Raley all in the process. On top of that though, we're still trying to add our second free agent who would become the best hitter on the team. All I'm gonna say is if we can get Sandy Alcantara and Trevor Larnach in one offseason, our offense might actually be average. That being said, I'm gonna offer him a 4-year deal, and because he's been waiting for long, let's try to lowball him just a little bit. I'm offering him about $10.5 million. If both of these players sign, we would have to be done with free agency, as we would have signed 3 guys. And then simming to the end of the month, Trevor Larnach, give us some good news, there's pink on the screen. I know I said it last year, but we absolutely nailed free agency with our best class yet, and hopefully it results in us getting a few more wins. My goal this season is quite simply to be average, and I feel like this lineup can finally get us there. Not only are we returning Ty France and Gavin Sheets, but we also add Trevor Larnach to the mix, while hoping that Cody Clemens and Moises Ballesteros can take another step up. Best lefty bashers from last year, Santiago Espinal Aspinall. And then batting ninth, we've got Weston Wilson with Christopher Morel and Ha-Sung Kim coming off the bench. Along with those guys though, I could also see Xavier Isaac and or Trey Morgan coming up this year, along with third baseman Arden Wordkemper, who might be the most pro-ready prospect hitter we have. At 73 overall, and with the ability to play multiple positions, he's almost a guarantee to get called up about a month into the year. Gotta practice that sweet service time manipulation, and along with that, Freddie Young and Eric Pena could be up as well. Then in the rotation, we're returning Christian Scott, Brian Hoying, and Dylan Dodd, while also adding Sandy Alcantara, along with a wild card in Mason Engelhart. He has 96 walks per nine and has conveniently been sitting in our farm system for the past 3 years, waiting for his chance to get the call-up. Now that he's here, we can finally take Quantrill out of the rotation, sending him to long relief with Albert Suarez. Then the rest of the bullpen is exactly the same, with Jonathan Loaizaga coming back on a new deal, with a few former Tampa Bay Rays at the bottom. Opening day this year is also against the Angels, so maybe there's a better chance to win. Unlike last year, we are not going up against Junior Caminero and Aaron Judge, although they just turned a beautiful double play. Regardless though, we're still seeing a lot better contact than last year. The other player that's going to be a huge deal for us this season though is Sandy Alcantara. Making his first start as a Marlin, we're counting on him to be our ace, although that is crushed for an RBI double. I am not trying to lose another opening day as we get 2 on base, but after an immediate double play, that turns into 1 guy on base, and Ty France cannot drive him home. That means there's even more pressure on Sandy Alcantara, who does get out of the inning, and now it seems we're starting to cook. There are once again 2 runners on, and you've gotta be kidding me. Myers hits it right back to Soriano, and that inning's over. The Party Animals are not playing like it's a party right now, as they're stranding pretty much every runner on base, but it feels like only a matter of time until they score. That's another double play. This could really not be any more unfortunate, as the Angels only have 1 hit as opposed to our 9. Now in the 6th though, Myers has another chance to drive in runs, and with runners at the corners, he can't do it. That will give us 10 hits on the day, but still no runs scored as we're going to the bottom of the 7th. Fortunately though, Alcantara is going strong with only 3 hits given up on the day. If you remember though, this was the same story as last opening day, as the Yankees beat us 1-0, but finally there's a homer. Cody Clemens scores the first run of the season, so after 12 hits on the day, we finally score. This one could very well be going to extra innings unless Trout does something, or Zach Neto for that matter. All we need is 1 more strike from Garrett Clevenger, and he does get it, which means we're going to the 10th. However, we still have to score another run, although Cody Clemens is once again going to take matters into his own hands. That is his 2nd dinger of the game, and he's really saved us. It really felt like we deserved to win this game, so I'm glad it's coming into fruition, although hang on just a second. Once again, our closer Hunter Biggie has decided to keep this interesting. Thankfully, that's going foul. That could have been really bad. The last thing I want to do here is give up a game-ending grand slam. That is a double play, but Clemens commits the error. Instead of a double play, there's still 0 outs on the board, so he could be in big trouble. That really should have hit him. I don't know why he swung. That means we're officially just a double play away from winning this game, or 2 strikeouts. This is one of the most stressful saves I've ever seen, as he's facing a 3-2 count. All we need to do is throw 1 more strike. The payoff pitch is belted into left center field. Sean Wells sends it all the way back, and that is going to lose us the game. That is an opening day walk-off victory for the Angels, and you really couldn't have drawn that one up any worse for the Party Animals. We had 13 hits in this game and 2 home runs from Cody Clemens. That is a heartbreaking way to start the season, but I do have to assume that Sandy Alcantara will continue lighting it up, while the offense should be able to score more runs. That being said, we're going to simulate the rest of the season as we win game number 2 and game 3. That is a great rally after the heartbreaking loss, and simulating this one, we're back in extra innings where we win this time. That is going to give us one of our best starts in team history, but now we're taking on the Yankees, who are certainly no joke. We have the series split at 1 game apiece, and entering the last game, we are in a 1-1 tie. With 2 guys on, we have a chance to break the tie, but that one cannot sneak through. Facing this dangerous Yankees offense, that certainly makes me nervous, and they're immediately going to to put some pressure on Eli Morgan. Now with the bases loaded, we desperately need a double play, although they're not taking the bait. Here comes the payoff pitch to Jazz Chisholm. This one is blasted deep into right center field, carrying all the way back to the wall, and you've got to be kidding me. We give up another grand slam. We were going for the double play, but instead they smash it over the fence, and that is how we lose the series to the Yankees. After a couple more losses, we are 4-5 going into our first week of scouting. We do have the number 4 overall pick, but unfortunately that should have been number 1. This Stefan Rosa guy looks absolutely insane and might be one of those 21-year-old generational talents. Who knows? We're gonna find that out very soon. Overall though, it looks like there's plenty of other starting pitchers on the board, so I'm not really losing sleep over having the number 4 pick. However, after 2 weeks of simulating, I think I found the player that I want to take. Greg Duke is the number 2 player in the class and should be available at number 4. Finding a shortstop like that is a really good pull in the first round, and I'll definitely be taking him if we have the chance to do so. Going back to the season though, we are playing worse and worse after the quality start as we get swept by the Red Sox. Unlike last year though, I finally feel like we have some solid players on offense, with Eloy Jimenez finally breaking out. He's hitting .321 with a .969 OPS, while Weston Wilson is also putting together a great performance. We could definitely use some more from Myers, France, and Sheets, but at this point in the season, I'm not too worried. On the pitching side of things, it looks like Brian Hoying's having his best start to the season yet, while our 5-starter Mason Engelhardt has been a nice surprise. Unfortunately though, scrolling down, I do see that Sandy Alcantara is 1-4 and is on a cold streak. While there's plenty of time for that to change, it's still concerning and I'd like to keep an eye on it. Meanwhile though, we just got swept by the Angels and also lost a series to the White Sox. You would think that would put us in last place, but as you can see, the Orioles are 8-37. How do you even do that? They're on pace to be even worse than we were in season number 1, and looking at scouting, we did find a gem of a third baseman. Ray Zander is ranked number 64 in the draft, but is number 6 on our board, so it seems we found another third base gem. All I can say about that is hopefully we have a chance to actually draft him, as the guys I wanted last year were taken way earlier than expected. We have one more series to go against Washington before taking on the Yankees, and as you can see, we beat the Nationals and lose to the Yankees. Moving forward though, we actually split the series against the Yankees and then sweep the Cardinals. We have now won 7 out of our last 10 games and are slowly but surely catching up to the Blue Jays. After our early success, I'm actually more focused on the season, and I think it's time to bring up Kirk Sams. We cannot leave him in the minors any longer. Our first selection of draft 2 becomes the first player called up to the majors, while Cal Quantrill's gonna get DFA'd. It's time. Then after that though, we're also calling up Arden Wordkemper, who deserves a spot on the roster at 75 overall. We're gonna give him a chance and send Ha-Sung Kim to the moon. As tempting as it is to call up Freddie Young as well, we're pretty loaded at outfielders, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense right now, despite his elite contact. The same goes for our first draft pick ever, and Eric Pena, who actually needs to get sent down. He is struggling at AA. We don't really have much to lose, and with Cody Clemens playing terribly, we're gonna take him out of the lineup and make Arden Wordkemper our new leadoff hitter just because we can. Then in the rotation, Dylan Dodd is really struggling, so Sams will slot in at number 3. We're putting those two guys into the rotation and kind of just waiting and seeing, as we're winning a lot of games. We just won 5 out of 6. This is truly the best this team has ever looked, and we're gonna have to see if they can take over the Blue Jays spot in 3rd place. There's plenty of time to get it done, as they're facing Houston, but lose the series. Right as I say that though, the losing kinda starts coming. Can we beat the Pirates? At least that happens. We continue to keep our record right around 420, and all I'm gonna say is that is pretty fitting for a team called the Party Animals. After a rough start to the season, it looks like Gavin Sheets is really surged back, leading us in RBIs while he's tied for 2nd, only trailing to Trevor Larnach. By the way, Larnach is proving to be an elite signing with a .927 OPS. He has been without a question our best player, although he might have some competition from Arden Wordkemper. His MLB career is off to a fantastic start, and his development is really coming along nicely. It's been a bit of a different story for Kirk Sams though, although he's only pitched 27 innings, and we need to wait and see. We're about to go to the MLB draft, but one thing I completely forgot to do is spin the wheel Wheel of Chaos. Fortunately, we can spin it now before it actually affects anything, and we are required to trade a random player. Really hoping that doesn't screw me over. We're just gonna get this over with. I'm covering my eyes and scrolling down the board, and 3, 2, 1, it's gonna be, oh, that's such a miracle. Thank you. Dominic Fletcher is absolute cheeks, and I'm perfectly fine trading him, assuming that we can actually get something for him. It looks like we can. I'm just gonna trade him for this 19-year-old. That is the most forgiving the Wheel of Chaos has ever been to us, as we're 1 week away from the draft. We also just uncovered the number 3 player in the draft class in Peter Felice, who looks amazing. If this guy's available with my second selection, he will most definitely be the pick. With that discovery, we should be set up very well for our 4th draft class of the video, and I'm excited to jump into it. If Julio Armas is available, he's probably going to be my selection, but more than likely, I'm going to be taking Greg Duke. Then right behind him is Peter Felice, who I might be able to get at number 39. I'm also a huge fan of Ray Zander though, so even if he's not available, I feel like I have a lot of options. The one thing I am noticing about this draft is outside of the first couple guys, this is a pretty weak starting pitcher class, so that might not be the target. That being said, if Julio Armas falls to us at number 4, I'm definitely going to be taking him just because of his skill set. I'm expecting him to go in the first 3 picks. Obviously though, I'm expecting him to go in the first 3 picks as the Rangers take the wrong guy. That is going to make me feel a little bit more hopeful, as with the number 2 overall pick, he goes to the Angels. No surprise there, as we turn our attention right back to Greg Duke, and at number 3, it looks like we're gonna get him. Just as we expected, he is still sitting there at our selection and will be our guy. Now stepping to our next pick, Felice is gone, and that's kind of what I was afraid of. He would go at number 22 to our division rival, the Yankees, while the Astros swipe up Ray Zander. That will unfortunately leave us to take the best player available, which is gonna be Elvis Guillen. He is a left-handed project starting pitcher, and number 5 in the class is not bad at number 39. I also see that Danny Atkinson went at number 21, so as always, my favorite players are just flying off the board. That is definitely going to complicate the draft board, as I'm not quite sure who to go for, as I haven't fully scouted anybody else, and the best player available is Peter Nomo. We select him in CB round B, and at number 78, let's take this center fielder. Now in the 4th round, I'm pretty much out of scouted position players, so we're taking a flyer. That is really not what I wanted to do, but fortunately I do have a discovery pitcher left on the board. He will be our selection in the 5th round before we end things off with this closer, Frankie Reeves. Just like last year, I'm not really sure how I felt about that draft. On the positive though, we do have a 42-56 record at the break and are on pace for our best season yet. Our new and improved offense has been a huge reason for this, as it took a while for the core to gel together, but once they did, they were absolutely electric. Gavin Sheets has emerged as a great power hitter alongside Eloy Jimenez, which is definitely a surprise. While Weston Wilson, Santiago Espinal, and Moises Ballesteros are playing key roles as well. More than anything though, I'm just happy to see that Arden Wordkemper is playing great as a rookie. He has a .339 average and a .522 slugging percentage, which I did not expect. Honestly, in MLB The Show, if you have a contact player with plate skills, the power is kinda just gonna show up itself. Then on top of that, the pitching has been really good with the new addition of Sandy Alcantara, although we may have to send Kirk Sams back down to AAA if he doesn't figure it out in the second half. As far as the All-Stars go, Moises Ballesteros did make the game. Now obviously I don't think this was legit, considering he has 27 RBIs and 8 home runs, and comparing his stats to Cal Raleigh, it seems that he was a default selection. I definitely got excited there for a second, but seeing that nobody else from our squad made the game, that is indeed the case. Coming out of the break, it's very clear that we're not going to make the playoffs, as we've been pretty much a 500 team ever since the All-Star break ended. That will bring us all the way to the trade deadline, where we're 48-65 and desperately need to make a decision on Gavin Sheets. We only signed him to a 2-year deal, so he's actually hitting free agency after this year, and while I could trade him, I feel like I want to bring him back, especially on this cheapish 5-year deal. steal. That feels like a bargain for a guy that's hit 65 RBIs and 24 bombs. With several prospects on the way up and the investment into Alcantara and Larnach, we are no longer trying to sell our pieces and desperately want to be in this for the long haul. I do have to say though, it's kind of hard to do that when Cody Clemens is hitting 136. A 136 average with a 393 OPS is completely unacceptable, and honestly I have no idea what happened to this guy. He is looking nothing like the second baseman that hit 2 dingers on opening day, so I'm probably trying to find another solution. Fortunately, he's been out of the lineup in a while and is just on the bench, so I'm not really sure if he provides any value, but he will definitely not be coming back after the end of this year. It might seem insane to add a 5th outfielder to the rotation, but Weston Wilson and Christopher Morel are more utility guys, which is something I never thought I'd say about Christopher Morel, but here we are. Anyways, the point is that Freddie Young has been playing way too well at AA to not get called up, and with great improvements to his contact and power, I truly think he's ready. We are adding him to the 40-man roster and then the MLB roster. Also, Cody Clemens is getting DFA'd. Rather than coming off the bench though, we're gonna swap Dane Myers with Freddie Young just to give him some quality at-bats against righties. However, against lefties, I also see that Ty France is struggling, so I'm gonna swap him and Gavin Sheets' position and put Freddie Young in left field. We are almost done at the deadline, but before we move on, I do want to finally make that deal for Coby Mayo. I know I said that I was going to do this during the offseason, but I forgot, and now the Orioles absolutely suck, so I feel like it's time for them to rebuild. Fortunately though, with Mayo's ongoing struggles, this really is not going to cost very much, as I'm giving them Soriano, as I'm going to give them a solid second baseman in Jeffrey Rhodes, along with one more piece. How about this starting pitcher? The game is calling this an overpay though, so I'm going to throw in one more player. How about former first-round pick Ike Irish? He is a really good hitter, but has been stuck in AA, so we're throwing him into the deal, and that's actually gonna work. That is a huge trade for 2 more prospects, and we're sending Irish immediately up to AAA. I know it's another left fielder, but we're gonna need a DH at some point, and I truly believe in Ike Irish's upside. That is gonna take us through the deadline to the start of August, where we are 50-65. Even though we're 5.5 games behind the Blue Jays, we're still on pace for our best record ever. It's gonna be a fun rest of the season, but before we proceed, it is time to view our draft. Draft number 4 is a little less important since we're so late in the rebuild, and this was not a very loaded class. We did start off the draft taking a 70 overall shortstop, so I can't really complain, especially considering he has 90 potential, but just judging by the ratings on our draft board, I was expecting to get a few more 90 potential players than we did. I can confidently say this is one of the worst drafts I've ever had in MLB The Show, and just because I'm curious, I'm gonna go through the rest of the teams and see if there are any high-profile late-round options, and I'm not seeing any. Sure enough, this was just a really bad draft class from front to back, and the later round players I was interested in, like Peter Feliz, ended up going in the first. Really nothing I could do about that. All things considered, we took the best players that we could, and at least there should be some solid trade bait here. We're gonna continue our season getting swept by the Phillies before splitting a 2-game series against the Yankees. All I'm asking for is to get to 60 wins before the end of August, and that is going to happen. We are 61-80. That will take us into September, where we're starting off taking on the Dodgers, and at least we managed to win 1. Right after that though, we end up sweeping the Rangers to officially secure our best record in team history, and we even do it again. With our youth movement, we finished 74-88. It was a massive season for our offense, with Eloy Jimenez breaking out with 33 home runs and 96 RBIs. He has been on the roster since the first offseason, but this was really the first time that he did anything of note. Then there's Trevor Larnach, who we signed in free agency last year, and while he did start on fire, he cooled off and finished with respectable numbers. Another player who took a huge step forward was Moises Ballesteros, who we traded for 2 seasons ago. While the RBI and home run numbers were not very impressive, this was easily his best year as a party animal. Then right after that, I have to mention 2 offensive players I'm very excited about in Coby Mayo and Arden Werdkemper. Those 2 guys, along with Freddie Young, were late additions to our offense in the season, and while Freddie did get moved by the CPU to AAA, he really flashed as a rookie and should be in the starting lineup on opening day next year. With the core of our team taking place and no restrictions from the Wheel of Chaos, we have a great chance to add to our team this offseason. This might seem like an easy solution, but the big problem for us is our biggest need, second base, has pretty much no free agents available. Brandon Lowe and Ahmed Rosario are just too old and underwhelming, while Nolan Gorman may be 28, but showed tons of regression last season. Upon looking at our roster, though, I think that solution needs to be Miguel Marcelo, as he is 25 years old and 78 overall. Along with a second baseman, though, we could also use a legitimate center fielder, as we don't have a lot of speed on the team. At first look in free agency, Jake McCarthy looks like as good of a fit as we could find, as Dane Myers is not gonna cut it against righties. The big problem for us is that I really expected Eric Pena to be ready, but he's only in AA. That being said, though, just for the need for speed, I'm also gonna put Jake McCarthy on the board and just see if we can get him. Then, just for fun, we're also gonna go after Francisco Alvarez, because you never know what's gonna happen. Then with our final spot, we're gonna go after Francisco Alvarez, because while I do like Ballesteros, getting a player like Alvarez would be game-breaking. I also realized that with the addition of Ike Irish, Christopher Morel is pretty much obsolete, so we're gonna trade him for 1 year of Jose A. Ferrer. This is very important, as our bullpen acquires a better closer and a bridge to Junior Hanna, who still is not ready. I also think it's time we move on from Ty France in favor of some younger players like Xavier Isaac and Trey Morgan. Both players could replace him, although my eyes are on Isaac just because of that power. Simming forward in free agency, though, it is not looking good for any of our targets. Being at 27% and 31% on 2 players makes it pretty unlikely we're gonna get any of them. With center field being one of our only needs of the offseason, that puts us in a really rough spot, as my 2 favorite guys are very likely to go to other places. After simming a few more weeks, though, there's still nobody interested in either player, although Alvarez is a different story. We're probably not gonna get him. Finally, time to start throwing out some contracts, starting with Trent Grisham. Despite being slower than Jake McCarthy, I feel like his offense is on a different level. After simming a couple more weeks, though, it is time to throw out contracts, and as you can see, Trent Grisham now has interest. Thankfully for us, though, my primary target is Jake McCarthy, so that is not a big deal. I'm gonna offer him a 3-year deal for about $15 million a year just to see where we stand. Just a few days later, he is already making his decision and signs with the Party Animals. That is a big deal. We get our center fielder, and now it's time to make a decision on Yordan Alvarez, who is not likely to sign with us, but we're gonna offer him 3 years for 16. He would absolutely fill a need for us, but with the minimal interest, I really don't think this is gonna happen, as he is making his choice and there's no way. I just threw an offer at him and he accepts it. That will give us one of the premier catchers of Major League Baseball, right along with Moises Ballesteros. That was very unexpected, so now I'm definitely trading Ty France for a prospect just to shed our payroll. We now have 3 guys on the roster making $15 million a year or more, with Trevor Larnach not far behind at 10.6. Now at first glance, I know that having 2 catchers might seem like a weird situation, but Ballesteros can actually play first base, so we can get both guys in the lineup at the same time or let one of them DH. Now we're setting our lineup for opening day with Arden Ward-Kemper and Freddie Young sitting at the top at 1 and 2. We have very high hopes for both of these guys and need them at our best if we want to make the playoffs. Then at number 4, we have the new addition in Francisco Alvarez with Moises Ballesteros right under him. Then there's Kobe Mayo at number 6 with the new center fielder Jake McCarthy batting 9th. It is no secret that his speed and stealing ability are the biggest reasons he's in the lineup as a pure center fielder. Then in the rotation, we're once again counting on Sandy Alcantara while also bringing in Ben Kasparius, who for some reason the Dodgers let go in free agency. However, no doubt the most important player in this rotation this year is Kirk Sams, who did not have a very good first season, and we're counting on him to be a lot better in year 2. Then at 4 and 5, as always, we have Christian Scott and Brian Hoying. That being said, we're starting season 5 out with a opening day appearance against Paul Skeens. Before we get there, though, we have to spin the Wheel of Chaos for the 5th time, and once again, we can only draft college players. We're pretty far along in the rebuild, so that's not a big deal. So for the 2nd year in a row, the Wheel of Chaos does not give us any problems. Meanwhile, Sandy Alcantara is dealing against the Pirates, but once again, I speak too soon. Right on command, he gives up a no-doubt shot to Nathaniel Lowe, and to be fair, that sinker was not where it needed to be. That means we're already already down by 1 run to Paul Skeens, which is not going to be an easy hole to climb out of. We desperately need Sandy to pick it back up, and he's retired the side 3 times in a row, although this is not good. He is once again in trouble, but gets the punch out with the curve. There might also be hope against Skeens as Kobe Mayo's on second, but we immediately strand him there. That will put another runner on second, but Skeens cleans it up again. As we've seen the past 3 seasons, we're just not making good contact, but fortunately Sandy Alcantara kept us in this game, although now we're going to the bullpen. We're down to our final chance in the 9th inning, as there's a double from Larnach. That is going to make this a little more interesting as we bring in the pinch runner, and now it's time to see if Alvarez can drive him home. That's hit hard straight to right field. That unfortunately brings us down to our final out, where Ballesteros flies out deep to center field. Paul Skeens and the Pirates get it done, losing us another opening day. We did not score a single run on 6 hits, which is absolutely embarrassing, and the first inning mistake from Alcantara ended up losing us the game. We're trying to make the playoffs this year, but I'm a little nervous about that if we're not even able to beat the Pirates as we get swept in the series. Now after a day off though, we're going up against the Rockies, and we win one of them and do take the series. That will keep us alive going into our first week of scouting, even though we're in last place. Thanks to the Wheel of Chaos, we're once again required to draft college players though, although it doesn't matter as much because we have the 10th pick. That's going to make the scouting process a little less exciting, as here come the wins in our 3rd week of the season. Considering we're in last place though, we need a lot more wins where that came from, as we win a series against Minnesota, and now against Toronto, we also beat them. Now we're taking on Baltimore, and if we win this series, we will climb out of last place. Unsurprisingly though, this is a 1-run game. It feels like the team never has a normal win, and that is a very unlucky double play. Sure enough, that is going to force us to the 9th inning, where we're counting on Ferrer to get us out of this, and that's a double. With the tying run on second base, we have to be very careful, and fortunately, that's a ground out. That will make Jackson Holliday the final out of the game, but unfortunately, Ferrer hung the changeup right over the plate, and Holliday is able to dig it out for a 2-run shot. That was the one thing we could not afford, and now King Felix is more than likely going to close us out. As we've seen throughout the series, we blow another 9th inning lead. This spot was definitely not where he wanted to leave the circle change, and we get punished. That will take us to the start of May, where fortunately we're actually tied for last place. Even though I'm still disappointed, I will take a winning record at this point in the year, especially with Eloy Jimenez playing this well. Him and Moises Ballesteros have easily been our best offensive players, along with Kobe Mayo and Trevor Larnach. Additionally, the brand new additions Jake McCarthy and Francisco Alvarez have been pulling their weight, while Arden Ward-Kemper is starting to heat up after a slow start to the year. Then on the mound though, Sandy Alcantara is having an elite season, and it's pretty clear that this is why we're winning. Ben Kasparius is playing well as our number 2, while Kirk Sams seems to have finally figured it out. That being said, despite our standing, I feel like we're on the right track to correct the ship as we win 6 games in a row. That is going to put us in standalone first place, but now we've got a tough gauntlet against the Phillies, the Astros, and the Dodgers. Starting off against Philadelphia, we have a 1-0 lead, and simming forward, we actually keep it. That is going to give us another series win, as we're only 2 games back from the Yankees. Winning this series against the Dodgers could put us in first place in our division for maybe the first time ever. We have a 1-run lead in the bottom of the 8th and do retire the side. With a 1-run lead, we are able to close them out in the 9th inning thanks to Jose Ferrer, and don't look now, but we just passed the Yankees. Although we do pull out a close victory against the Athletics before losing the next game. Our division lead did not last long, but it's clear that we are right up there with the Yankees and are gonna be a threat the rest of the way. Just checking out the stats, Moises Ballesteros has really come into his own with a 1000 OPS, while it feels like the rest of the offense is finally coming together. At the start of June, there's no doubt in my mind that the biggest weakness on the team is our lack of a quality 5th starter. Now, Brian Hoying has been a really good player for us, but he's in the final year of his contract, and the consistency has not been there. Fortunately for us though, we've been waiting for quite a while to call up Miguel Marcelo, and he's playing extremely well at AAA. He's ready for the move up to the MLB level, which we've certainly been anticipating since last season. Then as for Brian, there's no chance that he comes back, so we're just gonna trade him to Minnesota. Hopefully Marcelo's ready for the big time, but in the event that he's not, we always have Mason Engelhart, who has 95 walks per 9. Now we're facing the Yankees, and this series has major stakes. We're trying to take sole possession of first place, as we're tied at 2 apiece in the 9th inning. With 2 away though, it looks like we're going to extra extra innings, although Larnach gets a hold of that one, and it's a no doubt 2-run shot. There's so many times we've seen that go the other way, but this time the Party Animals are victorious. It finally seems like things are turning around for them as they win this game 5-2. Along with that, they also take the series, going up 2.5 games in the division. Now at the start of July, we have a 4-game lead in the division at 54-28. We've been on fire ever since calling up Miguel Marcelo, and looking at his stats, that is incredible. A 2.12 ERA and a 1.01 whip for a rookie is nothing to scoff at, and he should be able to improve even more as the year goes on. Early on, he's performing even better than Kirk Sams, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Our rotation has been nothing short of elite, as looking at the rankings in ERA, we are at 2nd in the league. The only team in front of us is the Dodgers, and that makes sense. With numbers like that, our offense doesn't need to be amazing, although it is nice to see they just barely rank in the top 10. They're pretty well balanced, with Kobe Mayo coming into his own, along with the new addition Francisco Alvarez. We have the best catcher duo in the league, with him and Ballesteros both playing out of their minds. Along with that, it's been a great debut season for Jake McCarthy, while both the young guys, Arden Wordkemper and Freddie Young, are pulling their weight as well. It seems the Party Animals have finally turned the corner, although at least on the scouting side of things, it's a little more complicated. Because we're restricted to only scouting college players, that certainly limits our options, as we've gone through pretty much everybody in the draft class and are now looking at closers in our final couple weeks. Thinking about my plan for the number 10 pick, I honestly don't really have one, although either one of Jeff Santos or Kyle Damon will have to do. Unlike in our first draft, there are not a lot of good players who are 19 years old or over, so we're kind of in a weird spot here. Without a doubt, this is the worst draft class we've seen so far in the video, and all I'm saying is thankfully it's this far along. If this was our first draft, we would be absolutely cooked, but simming to number 10, both of my options are available. I'm not gonna overthink it, taking the best player available and just hoping he's good. This draft is kind of a joke, so we're gonna speed through it as fast as we possibly can. Now with our next selection though, there are a few good players available, including the best closer in the class who may very well be my selection. We have selections at number 35 and 46 though, so I may as well roll the dice and see if he's available, and go ahead and take Waylon Herrera, who's almost certainly gonna be gone. Simming to our next selection, we're hoping that Nate Wilson stays on the board, and he does. There are literally no other players that I could possibly want in this slot, so in draft number 5, we're playing it safe, taking a closer. On the bright side though, I don't know what else we need to add to the core, so the stakes are really not that high here. Naturally, this was our worst draft yet, and I'm excited to move on to something else. On the bright side though, we're 65-31 at the All-Star break and extend our lead over the Yankees to 8 games. We started the month of July absolutely on fire, only losing 3 games and ending off winning 9 out of our last 10. On the offense, nothing's really changed, with Francisco Alvarez and Ballesteros still dominating, and I'm sure that both of them are going to be all-stars. They've been the stars of the offense, while Eloy Jimenez, Arden Wordkemper, and Jake McCarthy are also playing great roles on the team. I also have to give a huge shout out to Miguel Marcelo, who has now lost 2 games, but is still playing extremely well for a rookie. Him, Kirk Sams, and Sandy Alcantara are manning down the rotation, along with Ben Kasparius and Christian Scott. They have made one of the best units in the entire league, thanks to all having pretty high walks per nines. As a result, we had a number of pitchers rank extremely high for all-star votes, with Sams and Sandy Alcantara being in the top 6 for starters, and Kasparius and Scott being 1 and 2 for reliever. Additionally, I do see Ferrer at number 2 for closer, while Ballesteros and Alvarez are 1 and 2 for catcher. With so many guys in the running for all-star voting though, I'm curious what the awards look like, and Alcantara's leading for Cy Young. He has a chance to dethrone Tarek Skubal, who has won 3 awards in a row, and going over to the batting title, Ballesteros is on top at 341. It is fair to say that we won that trade with the Cubs. It has been a great season for the Party Animals, and they're looking to continue their dominance coming out of the break, although they just lost to the Marlins. Losing 1-0 is not ideal, as they also lose the series, but do rebound against one of their division rivals. That will bring us to the trade deadline, where unlike in previous seasons, we are without a doubt gonna be a buyer. Unfortunately though, I'm not really seeing much at the top, so this could be a bad opportunity. Looking at teams that are actually rebuilding though, I do see one more need that we could address. We have a pretty good bullpen, but nobody quite like Ronnie Henriquez, who at this point in the franchise, is 86 overall. With a year and a half left before free agency, he would be a great addition. Just because I'm curious, I'm gonna find out how much this would cost, giving up Trevor Hurley, which actually gets it pretty close. All we need is one more player to complete the deal, and Howie Lindstrom gets it done. Just looking at the offense though, there's not really much we could do to improve the lineup, as we either have young players in there, or veterans who are playing at a very high level, and honestly everything is gelling together. Rather than making a trade though, I think the best addition we can make is bringing up Ike Irish. The 24-year-old is 81 overall and has still not played a single major league game, despite being traded for a couple seasons ago. He's been raking at AAA, so it's finally time to bring him up to the show and see what he can do. To make room for Irish though, we do have to make a trade, moving longtime party animal Weston Wilson in exchange for whatever we can get. He's definitely had his moments, but has been relegated to a bench bat and isn't providing much for us. The 34-year-old left fielder isn't gonna get us very much, but an 18-year-old reliever's pretty solid. Ronnie Enriquez will become our new closing pitcher, with Ferrer going to the setup role, and I'm really excited to see what this team can do the rest of the season. At the start of August, we are 73-35, which is still 8 games above the Yankees, and after simming our first game of August, we beat Toronto 13-0. They're not exactly the team that's playing for the World Series right now, but seeing 13 runs from the Party Animals is certainly inspiring. Jake McCarthy and Eloy Jimenez both had 2 home runs apiece, with Jimenez having 7 RBIs. This was also a 5-inning shutout for Kirk Sams. That is a huge statement to start the month of August, as we can now also view our draft picks. I'm not really expecting much from this class, so we're gonna take a look, and honestly, that's not bad. Not a single player in the class is a potential, which we were expecting, but considering we were only allowed to draft college-level players, I will absolutely take it. With the draft class out of the way, we're just gonna simulate the month of August and hope that our winning ways continue, as we have a significant cushion over the Yankees in the division. Late in the month, we are taking them on head-to-head and split the series 2-2. That's definitely gonna be something to keep an eye on going forward, as we maintain an 8.5 game lead. 89 wins in the month of September is currently the best in all of baseball, even ahead of the Dodgers. That is especially impressive considering that every team in the AL East currently has a winning record. That can make our road to baseball's best record even tougher, as we're facing several of them before the end of the season. So far though, we've only lost 2 games in the month of September, as we're taking on the Yankees, and with the series split at 1 win apiece, we get the victory, securing us win number 100 and pretty much locking down this division. Make no mistake, it was already locked down, but it definitely is now. The Party Animals finish 107-55 and officially secure the number 1 seed in the American League. They had the best record in baseball by 6 games, essentially going from one of the worst teams in the league to one of the best. We are preparing for our first playoff run of the video in season number 5, but before we get there, I think I need to highlight the players who got us here. Most notably, Eloy Jimenez actually ended up being our best hitter with 95 RBIs and 29 dingers. It has been a crazy journey for him on this team, as we signed him in 2026 for him to put up pretty mediocre numbers, and then the next year he only played 1 game before truly breaking out in 2028. Then in 2028, I don't really know what changed, maybe he started juicing, but whatever it was, he definitely broke out with the best season of his career, and he followed that up with another good one. Then from there, last year's trade acquisition, Kobe Mayo, was also really good, along with our duo of catchers, although Ballesteros was moved full-time to first base. Another player who was really good for us was Jake McCarthy, along with Arden Wordkemper, who exploded the second half of the season. Without a doubt, he has been our best homegrown prospect, and at 83 overall, I feel like he could only get better. Both of his contact ratings are in the 90s, making him a great leadoff hitter. This offense was extremely good this year, and I'm excited to see what they can do in the postseason. Then of course, we have to talk about the rotation, as Sandy Alcantara was elite, and we're going to find out very soon if he won the Cy Young. Along with him though, the new addition Ben Kasparius, who made the All-Star game, was also brilliant, along with second-year player Kirk Sams, reliable veteran Christian Scott, and the brand new rookie Miguel Marcelo, as Ronnie Enriquez came on late and became a really solid closer. Checking out awards though, I'm curious to see what kind of hardware we won, and Tarek Skubal does it again. He has won 4 Cy Youngs in a row, including 5 in the last 6, and the Tigers are lucky to have resigned him. With 5 American League Cy Youngs, he has officially passed Roger Clemens for the most in the American League, although he still needs 2 more to match Clemens' total of 7. That would without a doubt make him the GOAT of pitchers, as going over to batting title, Arden Werdekemper steals it. A .323 average and 73 RBIs is enough to take the award over Roman Anthony, and then reliever of the year is Ronnie Enriquez, while Ben Kasparius wins Rookie of the Year. I was not expecting that one. Nonetheless, we definitely cleaned up in the awards category, and now in the divisional round, we're taking on a very familiar foe. Here's where the roster stands going into the ALDS game against the Yankees, who are certainly looking for revenge after we won the division over them. Regardless of what we did in the regular season though, I'm certainly worried for this, as they have a ton of 90 overalls and have done a very good job of developing their core around a regressing Aaron Judge. Scrolling through the roster, the talent just keeps coming, so we're gonna need to play our best baseball and beyond. It is time for Alcantara to show why he should have been in the Cy Young conversation, but that is an early run given up for our ace. Unfortunately, I feel like that could be a common theme, as the Yankees are trying to bury us and it's only the 3rd inning. They score 4 runs in the 3rd, although Kobe Mayo goes deep. That's at least gonna get us back in this game, but it might be too little too late, as it is 6-2 in the 6th. However, right as I say that though, we rally right back with 3 more. I really thought we were out of this, but the offense found a way to make this a game, as Kobe Mayo is 3 for 4, but unfortunately, we are down to our last chance. On top of that though, they've also got Johan Duran on the mound, and after giving up a single, he gets 2 outs before Young singles. The tying and winning runs are on base, but Ballesteros has to be careful of the 101-mile-an-hour heater. Our Game 1 comeback comes up just short, so now we're really hoping for better results in game number 2, as Kasparius does pick us up the victory. That was a must-win game that makes me feel a lot better about the future of this series, as we strike first with 3 runs. That is great run support with Kirk Sams on the mound, as Alvarez also goes deep. Then right after that, Dane Myers follows up with a solo shot, so we are absolutely cooking and are going to be 1 game away from winning this series. It certainly looked scary in game number 1, but our offense came to play, winning this game 8-2. In their first ever postseason series, the Party Animals are showing that they certainly belong on the big stage, as the Yankees are facing elimination in game number 4. So far through 3 innings though, it has been a pitching duel, as Christian Scott is holding it down. In the 5th though, Dane Myers gets on base before Jimenez drives him home. That will give us the lead, and now we just need Scott to hold on, which he does. As we've seen so much throughout this video, a 1-run lead is absolutely terrifying, but Alvarez comes through. That 3-run shot in the 8th inning might have just won us the World Series, just like I saw my Mariners lose on a 3-run shot themselves. Despite my pain as a fan, we take care of business, winning the final game of the series 7-1 with a little help at the end. Big shout out to the Party Animals, who went down 1-0 early on, but won 3 games in a row against New York to move on to the LCS. Now in the ALCS though, we're taking on the defending champion Tigers and are gonna need to be at our best. Sandy Alcantara did not have a great performance in his first playoff game, but he's going up against Tarek Skubal, and considering that this team has added O'Neal Cruz and Gunnar Henderson, along with Carlos Correa, I can definitely see why this team won the World Series. Coming into this start, Sandy Alcantara had a 16.88 ERA, and he's going up against Skubal, so I'm not sure if I'm optimistic. However, we do strike first with a double, and that is a huge deal. So far, Alcantara is doing exactly what was needed, but Henderson goes yard. That is going to tie the game right back up in the 6th, as Henderson actually does it again. That will give the Tigers the lead, and we have not been able to hit Skubal ever since the 2nd inning. In a 1-run game, we're down to our last chance, but they put us away. Just like in the ALDS, we lose the first game of the series, with Alcantara taking the L. That being said, we absolutely need a miracle, but also lose the 2nd game and the 3rd game. Unfortunately, it looks like we're going to be playing another season of this franchise, as we get swept by the better team. The Tigers would fall to the Dodgers in the World Series, and the Party Animals are in a big offseason with 4 free agents. However, even though several of these players helped us get here, I am not bringing a single one of them back. We need to move forward. Rather than spending the money to bring those guys back, we're counting on players like Eric Pena and Junior Hanna to come up to the show and continue their development. With the money that we saved though, instead of getting Dane Myers Myers back for about $14 million a year, we're gonna fill a huge need on our team at second base. The player that I'm targeting here is Xavier Edwards from the Marlins, who is a switch hitter with a very similar skill set to Ard Wordkemper. He's gonna cost a bit of money, but with great contact and plate skills, he's absolutely gonna be worth it. We are adding him to the board along with a couple of backup options just in case we don't get him. For the main backup though, we are going back to the Marlins trying to get Otto Lopez. Edwards is preferred, but either one of these players would be fine. We should be in a good spot to get one of those players, although we have to remember that there's always a chance that neither of them will be interested. In that case, ironically, the best option for us is to just bring back Dane Myers, as he can not only play center field, but also has the utility to play everywhere in the infield. It definitely wouldn't be my favorite move, but as a 34-year-old, maybe we can give him a one-year deal. Now, I'd definitely like to sign one of those players sooner rather than later, because unfortunately, we still have another need this offseason. Even after adding Junior Hanna to the bullpen, I'm still not fully confident in what we have here, considering that Garrett Clavenger and Jonathan Loaizaga are both 35 years old and are rapidly regressing. While their overalls and their ratings are still very serviceable, we're probably going to want to bring in someone else. Simming forward a week in free agency though, looking at our offers, Xavier Edwards is the most interested. I'm sure that finally being a contender has something to do with his interest, but I'm excited to go get him. We're going to sim one more week and then offer him a deal, and that is very good timing as there are two teams interested. We cannot afford to miss out on him. We're offering him 5 years and $21 million a year. He's already making his decision, which is not promising, although it does work out in our favor as he signs with the Party Animals. He will immediately become one of the best hitters on the team, if not the very best, as his skill set very closely resembles Arden Wordkemper, although even better. He will plug straight into the leadoff spot, and I couldn't be much more excited. The offense is in better shape than ever, and that's not even including guys like Trey Morgan, Alan Kohler, and one of our first round picks from a couple years ago, Greg Duke. On top of that, it seems that the first draft pick of the video, Eric Pena, has finally figured things out. In terms of overall, he has passed up Jake McCarthy and could get the call up next season. With that move out of the way, we're gonna turn our attention to the bullpen, where I actually want to make a trade. Despite having several pieces, the Athletics are still a rebuilding team, and they have a 79 overall reliever with a very good walks per 9. He has 2 years remaining on his deal and is not going to cost us very much. That should pretty much set the bullpen for next year, although I do want to bring in one more player just for insurance. You never know how regression's going to hit, so it's always good to have some backups, so a reunion with Nick Sandlin actually makes a lot of sense. Him and Eli Morgan are the final players on the board, and just looking at the stats, I think I would prefer to bring back Morgan. Morgan's the better player, and he's not asking for much more money, so I'm going to throw him out a 2-year deal with a bit of a lowball contract. I was not expecting him to sign, but he actually did. That is going to completely set the 26-man roster for next year, so we're simming the rest of the offseason. According to MLB The Show, we are the best contact hitting team in the entire league, but as far as everything else goes, I feel like we're underrated. We should have no problem getting back to the playoffs, but before we do that, we have to spin the wheel. The Wheel of Chaos has been really nice to us, but now is not the time to screw us over. That's actually not bad. For the second time of the video, we're limited to 3 players in free agency, but considering that we only signed 2 last season, I'm not too worried about it. Sure enough, after the first month of the season, we are in first place, but not without fierce competition. Even though we're in first place though, I'm a little bit nervous for the production of several players in the offense, as right from the rip, I can see that Francisco Alvarez and Kobe Mayo are both putting up really ugly numbers. This simply has to turn around if we want to emerge as one of the top offenses in the league. On the bright side though, 26-year-old homegrown outfielder Freddie Young is doing his thing and is seemingly having a breakout season with a 1,084 OPS. Since we're now in season number 6, I'm not really paying attention to scouting, as the draft really doesn't make a difference at this stage in the rebuild. That being said though, I'm absolutely a perfectionist, so I'm still gonna draft and try my best to set this team up for success. After another month of simulating, we're still in a really good spot for the division despite just losing a series to Boston, who's still 7 games below us. I'm really hoping that this means the offense has turned itself around, and just looking at all of the guys that are on fire, it seems that's the case. Specifically, Francisco Alvarez is really heating up, getting his average up to 256 and his OPS to 680. Even with a few players not not playing up to their ratings though, it's gonna take a lot for somebody to overtake us in the AL East. Right now, the second place Red Sox are 10 points down from us, and just looking at the stats, it seems we have a lot of all-stars on offense. Out of the group though, probably the most notable though is Moises Ballesteros, who's still doing his thing, showing a ton of power and has an OPS over 1,000. On top of that though, it's been a great year for Freddie Young and the new guy, Xavier Edwards, with Gavin Sheets doing big boy things off the bench. I really wish we saw some more offense from the former Orioles in Ike Irish and Kobe Mayo, but maybe the rest of the season will be better. Then checking out the rotation, we have been absolutely dominant with several guys posting mid to low 3 ERAs. Going down to the bottom though, it seems that Christian Scott is finally on a bit of a cold streak. He has an 8-2 record, but just hasn't been the same quality of player, so I'm really hoping he can turn things around before the deadline. As far as all-star voting goes though, it looks like none of our starters made it, and I'm also not seeing our closer. That is a bit of a surprise, as Ballesteros, Xavier Edwards, and then Eloy Jimenez are our only all-stars. 3 all-stars is a little bit underwhelming for the best team in baseball, but I'm not losing any sleep over it. We're still in really good shape at the deadline, but with Kobe Mayo still struggling at third base, I'd like to find a solution. Right off the bat though, I'm seeing that Kevin McGonigal's on the trade block, and the Tigers are looking to move on. This does make a lot of sense considering that he's buried at his position, and now I'm curious how much this is gonna cost. But to get an 85 overall with A potential, I really feel like it would be worth it. I came really close to pulling the trigger, but honestly, it doesn't really make sense for a player like McGonigal to get traded from the Tigers of all teams, although I think I found a move that makes a lot more sense. The Rockies are still in rebuilding mode, and Ethan Holiday just came up to the majors. He did not come up to the show as fast as people thought, and has ultimately not been the superstar player the Rockies expected. That all being said though, the cost of this move is not going to be cheap, so we're giving up whatever we can to get Ethan Holiday. We are trading 2 B potential prospects and 1 A potential guy to get the 23-year-old infielder. That is a really aggressive move to hopefully push Kobe Mayo, but I am still not done being aggressive. Eric Pena may be on a cold streak at AAA, but Jake McCarthy has really struggled this year at the majors and is rapidly regressing. Don't get me wrong, he's still a really serviceable player, but we have to get aggressive, and we'll be calling up Eric Pena. We will be trading McCarthy to the Diamondbacks in order to give them a bit more assurance at center field. Looking at the updated lineup, Ethan Holiday and Kobe Mayo will platoon, while the veteran Gavin Sheets has earned his way back into the lineup, replacing the struggling Ike Irish. However, if he does not perform, Eric Pena is ready to come off the bench at moment's notice. He is very much a boomer bust player, and I'm really excited to see what he can do. I also have to note that looking at awards, Moises Ballesteros might win the MVP. I can only imagine how much the Cubs are regretting this trade. Going over to the Cy Young though, nobody should be surprised that Tarek Skubal is trying to win his 6th total and 5th in a row. We have 2 guys competing for the batting title, while Ronnie Enriquez is looking to defend his reliever of the year. All things considered, this has been a really successful trade deadline, but before we get to the end of it, I think I want to make one more move. For the first time in his Party Animals career, Christian Scott is really struggling, posting an ERA above 5. I definitely still believe in him, but with a team trying to win it all, I just don't think it's worth the risk to keep him in the rotation. Additionally, we've also been lacking a lefty starter for pretty much the entire rebuild. That being said, just like we went to the rebuilding Rockies for a piece, I'm going to the White Sox, where Noah Schultz has a year and a half before free agency. That being said, it really makes sense for the White Sox to sell on him at this point, and I would not be making this move if I didn't think it was completely realistic. Obviously though, this is not going to be cheap, as I'm offering them not 1, but 2 A potential prospects, along with a B potential guy in George Soriano. Even then, that is just enough to get this deal done as we pull the trigger, making our biggest trade yet. With that move being made, Sandy Alcantara will remain our ace, with Schultz sliding in at number 2, along with Ben Kasparius, who's much better than his overall rating suggests. Then of course, in the bottom 2 slots are Kirk Sams and Miguel Marcelo, who are both on fire. Then in the bullpen, we're gonna give Scott a chance to turn his season around, as he's truly been one of our best starters. And then after that, here is the rest of the bullpen, led by Ronnie Enriquez. We just pulled the trigger on a 26-year-old southpaw pitcher, and it was absolutely not cheap. Between that trade and the one for Ethan Holiday, we just completely gutted our farm system, so fortunately there are some really good prospects coming in to help us out. After being restricted to college guys last year, we take 4 guys with 90 potential or higher. One of the biggest reasons to build a farm system in this game is so you can afford to make the trades for Noah Schultz at the moments where you need it, but some part of me is always a little bit sad that I don't get to see those players at the major league level. All things considered, we're a much better team on paper than last year and should be able to win a pennant. We finished with the exact same record as last year at 107-55, and that was after a pretty weird month of August. We had a few fluky losses even after making our deadline moves, but it feels like our team has gelled ever since. But our team really gelled towards the end of the season, once again having the best record in baseball by 1 game. Now for the moment of truth though, I see the American League MVP goes to Moises Ballesteros. He had a 312 batting average with 43 dingers and 132 RBIs. I said it before and I will say it again, that trade was absolutely brilliant. Then going over to Cy Young, Tarek Skubal wins number 6 of his career, cementing himself as one of the greatest ever. He is just 1 away from Roger Clemens, and this has to be the best B-side plot of this rebuild. Then once again, we had the batting title winner as Xavier Edwards takes it with a 342 average, but we did not repeat at reliever of the year. While some of our key offensive players like Francisco Alvarez and Kobe Mayo were inconsistent, they ended the year on fire, which has me very optimistic for the playoffs. It was another great year for Eloy Jimenez, who really revived his career with the Party Animals, and of course, we've got the American League MVP. He's not quite Big Dumper, but a catcher hitting 43 bombs is nothing short of awesome. Add in the fact that our entire rotation was electric, and we're kind of looking like the Seattle Mariners. That being said, unlike the Seattle Mariners, I hope we don't lose in the ALCS. For the 2nd year in a row, we're taking on the 2nd place team in our division in the first round of the playoffs, but this time it's the Red Sox. Just keeping it real, this team is absolutely terrifying with an insanely loaded outfield led by 99 overall Roman Anthony, along with 2 Cy Young finalists in Garrett Crochet and Mackenzie Gore. I'm confident that this Red Sox team is even scarier than the Yankees, and that is certainly saying something. I don't want to admit it, but this might be the best team we've seen in the playoffs so far, although we're off to a great start. Alvarez just launched a 2-run home run, putting us up early in Game 1, and that is a big deal going against Crochet. Noah Schultz has been holding it down, although now he has the bases loaded and gets out of it. Our blockbuster deadline acquisition is making us very proud as we are shutting them down. With 1 more inning to go, Enriquez closes it out, giving the Party Animals a shutout victory in Game 1. I cannot describe how badly we needed that victory, as we also win Game 2 and are just 1 victory away from the LCS, and there it is. We secure the sweep, and now we're taking on the Guardians. I do want to give fellow Washington State University alum Kyle Manzardo credit for finishing as the runner-up MVP, but aside from him, this team is not looking that hot. After getting swept in this series last year, it is a huge relief to be playing Cleveland, as I'm fully confident we can beat them, and it's another sweep. That will send us to the World Series, where we're not taking on the Dodgers, but rather the team that gave us the AL MVP. Just because of that, this is definitely a revenge series for the Cubs, who have a really solid rotation, and did acquire a really good catcher in Shea Langeliers, along with Tyler Soderstrom from the Athletics. Then to round things out, they still have PCA, and it looks like they traded for Ronald Acuna Jr. Going into the World Series, here is our lineup, as we're taking on a lefty in their ace, Chris Bubic. However, with Gavin Sheets on a cold streak, I'm going to do something interesting and give Eric Pena a shot. This may be a massive risk, but it feels a lot safer than keeping Sheets out there to die. Once again, we've got a lefty versus a lefty, as Noah Schultz is out there once again. It is still scoreless, but I'm feeling really confident considering that Eric Pena doubled as we score a run. Now it is all about preserving this lead as we hold PCA on base and then score on a sac fly. That will make it 2-0, so we have a pretty comfortable lead as Eloy Jimenez makes it 3-0. Just like in the ALDS, Noah Schultz holds it down, starting us off with a shutout victory. On top of that though, it's also worth mentioning that Eric Pena had 2 doubles. After a performance like that, there's really no reason to keep him out of the lineup, as we're putting him in against righties and lefties. I know I didn't bring up Pena for a while, but if he can keep producing, I would be more than happy with his draft position, as we also win game number 2 before losing game 3. That is our first postseason loss. That is a much needed victory for the Cubs, who are going right back to Chris Bubic while we have Kirk Sams on the mound. We cannot afford to let them tie the series back up, but there's a dinger from Alvarez. He's not hitting for a lot of average, but he seems to come through whenever it matters, as it's still 1-0. Sams was up to the challenge against their ace, pitching 7 scoreless innings, so now it is all up to our bullpen to hold this down, and an extra run will help as we do get the save. The American League MVP delivers at just the right time before the former reliever of the year secures us the victory. We are 1 win away from the World Series, and that was made possible by Kirk Sams. If you remember, he was the number 2 overall pick that we honestly didn't even want. That being said though, I'm really glad we ended up with him, and it seems things worked out as they should have. We are in a very good spot, only needing to win one of the next 3 games to become World Series champs, and with Noah Schultz on the mound, that should be easy, although maybe not. He just gave up 2 runs to this Cubs lineup, so it seems we could be going to game 5. Going up against Logan Gilbert, it was a really quiet day for the offense, although there is Eric Pena and Ward Kemper. And now this one is going to extra innings. We have a chance to win the World Series on the road in front of the fan base that already hates Moises Ballesteros. However, there are 2 outs with Xavier Edwards on base, and Ethan Holiday delivers a go-ahead RBI single. That is a huge deal for the trade deadline acquisition, and now Francisco Alvarez gets one right down the middle. That is his 6th home run of the postseason, and while he has not made contact very much, when he does, it's a banger. That is going to put us up by 3 runs, and there's 2 outs. We are 1 more away from winning the World Series as Soderstrom makes soft contact, and there it is. I made the Savannah Party Animals in MLB The Show and brought them all the way from the worst team in baseball to World Series champs in 6 years. Thank you so much for watching this video. Once again, it was a ton of fun to make, and I feel like the combination of free agent acquisitions, trade acquisitions, and the guys we drafted made this a very fun rebuild. Many of you have been calling me the GOAT of franchise, which I think is ridiculous, but if you want to watch more rebuilds, click right here to see more.